Hi, in today's class you will learn about what is Java exceptions. So what is an exception? So why we need to handle Java exception in our program or application. So what are those Java exceptions that you're going to learn today? An exception is a problem that arises during execution of a program. So whenever you run your program or application, so exception can occur. It's a problem. Suppose if anything not good, if anything your user entered a different data, or your files not found, or something happened basically at runtime, exception can occur, and it can abnormally bring down your program. So that's basically the exception. So if anything not found, which basically you are looking for in the program, and you're trying to read the file or trying to read the data from an array, if the data is not there in that location, it may throw an exception. It will fail your program. It will bring down execution of your program. So that can occur. It can occur at, basically at runtime, at execution time, basically. So, how to handle those exceptions? That is what you're going to learn today. When an exception occurs, the normal flow of the program is disrupted, and the program or application terminates abnormally, which is not recommended. Therefore, this exception to be handled. Basically, a termination of program abnormally is not good. Just it will terminate your program. It doesn't run. So that is not good, right? You should handle it. And if you want to bring down application, bring down your program, you should bring them gracefully by showing the error messages, saying that printing error message saying that something not found, the data is not right, and file not found. Something you need to tell why the program went down, right? So you have to tell, and then you can bring down the program, or you can continue it basically. So you have basically you can read it from somewhere else or from the hard-coded data, and you can continue the program. So you should not terminate the program abnormally. So that's how you need to handle it basically, based on the your functionality. How do you want to do it? Based on your design, you can design actually. Suppose if file not found, I should read the data from somewhere else and execute the program. Or if suppose data is not there, some index location, so then read it from some different place. Something you should handle it properly by catching the exceptions. Exceptions are very, very useful in Java. So and by writing the program. So we'll see it in a few minutes. We're going to write that exceptions in Java code in a few minutes. An exception can occur for multiple different reasons. Following are some of the scenarios where exception occurs. A user has entered invalid data. So in last class, you read from user the data, like an integer data. He input the data into a program. For example, he input a string data instead of a integer. It's a different data. Then your program abnormally will terminate. You should catch an exception there, and you should tell the user that enter the integer data, not string data. So that can be done by handling the exception. That exceptions help you to catch that exception, that event. Exception is an event, error event. By catching that exception and telling the user, so you are entered a string data, please enter the integer data, so that your program abnormally won't terminate it. It will continue basically, and your user will know, oh, okay, I entered the different kinds of data, but I need to enter the integer data. That kind of information you're going to give to the users, and also the program is more intelligent basically, so it can handle even some kind of error scenarios by using the exceptions, by catching the exceptions, by handling the exceptions in your program. A file that needs to be opened cannot be found. Suppose we have read a file in the last class. If the file is not found, so how to handle that one? So basically, if you don't have the file there, your program will terminate immediately because file not found there basically, right? You cannot read the file. But if you put an exception around that, catching of exception using try catch, so then it will come to your catch block, the exception, and there you can say that actually you can read from some different place, or you can tell the user that the file is not found. Like that, basically, you can tell the reason why that is failed. So that actually can be done using the exceptions. There are two kinds of exceptions. One is checked exceptions, which can be caught at the compile time. Checked exceptions, if you don't catch them, your program won't compile at all. So you have to catch them basically. So this will basically give some kind of guarantee that they won't happen at runtime because you're catching them properly at the compile time. So whenever you write any class or method, you have to write a exceptions gracefully. You have to tell that user, but you have to catch this. If you are using your classes or methods, they should catch those exceptions. Okay, so we'll see that one. So that exception, checked exceptions. A checked exception is an exception that is checked by the compiler at compilation time. There are also called as compile time exceptions. These exceptions cannot simply be ignored. The programmer should take care of these exceptions. So these checked exceptions. Unchecked exceptions is an exception that occur at the time of execution. These are called runtime exceptions. So they should be caught at runtime, not at compile time. So they can happen at any runtime. So this can be included program bugs such as logic errors or improper use of API. Runtime exceptions are ignored at time of compilation. Compilation time, you can ignore them. So your program will run, but your program will terminate if it happens at runtime. Let us see in our programs. We will write a program to see how to catch them, how to handle them. Here in the last class we wrote a program, read file, right? Here reading it from a file and also creating an array here. So here if you see here throws we are putting, you put a here throws file not found exception in the signature of a method read file, and you also catching that, you also put this throws file not found exception. You are not catching the exception, you just throw that exception to the down the line, whoever basically calling the method, the read method, you are passing that exception to them. And here also I am not catching this exception, I just passing it to the next person who calls this method. So this is basically some way you can avoid actually, but it's not the right way basically. So you should catch it and then do the whatever the you want to do. If a error happened, exception happened, what it should be done. So you have to basically do whatever basically the functionality, whatever you want to achieve. Basically, if any error happens, you should handle it properly. So if I remove this line here, so what happens? This is a checked exception because whoever wrote scanner class, they actually added a checked exceptions. You have to catch them. So you are the caller of this class. It will call constructor of the class, right? So you're a caller basically. So you have to catch that one. Your program won't compile. So you have to do either you have to put a throws here and pass it to the next caller of the method, or you have to do try catch. So let us do it. So what is this exception? It is file not found. So the file you're reading a file, right? The file is myfile.properties. So which file you're reading it? You're reading myfile.properties. If the file not there, what should be done? That is what basically it is asking basically. So if you catch it will throw exception if file not found there. Okay, so let us see how this exception so you have to catch this exception. How do you catch this exception? By using try. Okay, catch file not found exception. This is the syntax for this exception. So you have to handle it. So in the if condition here, this code basically you are surrounding this try catch to this code. So now this no longer is showing the error because you caught that exception, right? So if anything happens at runtime, okay, if anything happens catch, it will come to here the catch block. The try catch, it will come to catch block. So it won't fail here. So in the catch block you can print it system.out.println file not found, the property file not found, unable to read the data. So basically this is one of the reason you can tell to the user, whoever basically running this program, they know property file not found. That is the reason why it is exiting. Okay, and catch, there is a called finally. So try catch also has finally. We'll come to that actually. Whenever you have something basically databases and all, the finally block will be executed even if error occurred or not occurred. If error occurred, basically it will come to here. Or if this line something error happened, it will come to catch block, and also it come to finally block. If error not happened, it will run this one and also come to finally. Finally will run in both cases whenever error happened and error not happened. Let us put a print out here. Print to the console. Finally called. So I just put some some logs here. This is called logging. So I put it some log to the console saying that some finally called. This is error called. This is finally called. So let me run this program. So what I did is I removed this throws here because we don't. If you catch this properly in your program, this is checker exception, right? This is basically throwing by scanner class. Scanner constructor is throwing that exception. If you catch it, you don't need to throw it here, and also you can remove it from here. You don't need any more in the main. This is the main is the caller of your method read file. You no longer need to do that here because you have caught that exception here and you handled the exception here. Okay, and here whenever this exception happens, return null, because return null basically so that it won't go into this next step. Basically, next step you need this data to create an array. Right, you need a data basically. So, but exception happened, you don't have the data, so it will fail again here. So that's why you have to terminate this method at this point. You're returning here, so that actually whenever it happens error, it will return here. It won't go to the next statement. So return always cut that program there, execution there. It will that method basically, and it will come out of the method. Right. So that's how you have to do return, and you need to handle that because it is being null. Here, in the last program, we didn't handle it. My array, basically, you have read a file, you got it, and you're trying to print here. But now you have going to receive file not found. You're going to receive null here, right? You have to handle it if this if condition. You have to put it if integer array equal to null, then basically you have to tell that not equal to null. If it is not equal to null, then only process it. That means the file is there and data is there. If it is equal to null, do not process this. Do not run this program. Basically, this will go into this block only if it is not null. Integer array. When the integer array not null, so whenever it has a file found and it read from the file, created it. If it is file not found, it will throw an error, throw null, not error, throw null. In case of null, basically, if it will go into the else block. There is no else block here. It will come out of this condition. It won't go into then basically at all here. It won't be run here. So let us see. Let us run first with whatever added code and then see how it runs. Because for initially we have the file here. My file.property is already there. Okay. So we are running with the file is there. Let us see what happens. Run file. This program is running. So here it gracefully runs, right? So it ran the program. It is successful scenario. It successfully basically file is there, read the file. See here finally called. So file is there. Even then finally called. So basically try catch block. If is successful scenario, it caught it at count equal to count. You printed count here. Count equal to 4. It ran basically. So because the file is there, then this is try catch block. This block of code ran and it printed count, and later it didn't go into the catch. Catch is only in case of exception. Any error happens, then only it will go to catch. Otherwise, it will go into the finally is called no matter what, whenever a exception happened or not happened. So it called finally. And later basically it read this, then it continued execution. It basically created an array and it returned this array. It didn't return null because if it went into the catch block, it would have written null. if it goes into the catch block, it would have written null. It didn't go to the catch block. That's why it come here and read from the file, and also it created a my array and written the my array. And then what happened? And then here in this one, array not equal to null. Array is not equal to null. Correct. Array is not a null basically, because you written the data, right? The array has written as data. So array not equal to null. That's why it went into this block, and then it printed my array 10, 20, 30, 40. If it is null, then it would not have printed. Okay, so this is a successful scenario. It is working well. So now let us create some error condition, exception. What is the exception you got here? File not found, right? Let us delete this file. Let me rename this file. I want to rename this file. Okay, I'm going to rename this as a different name, so that actually that file with that name, my file.properties, no longer exists there. So now q.properties, file not found there. My name, my file.properties is no longer there. So then let us see what happens here. So because you caught that exception here, so you should go into this catch block and also finally block, okay, and it should come down here to the method next to main, and it should basically integer array would be null, right? Because if it goes into the catch block, you're returning null here, right? Return null value, you're returning it. You're not returning the integer array. Basically, you're returning null. So if it is null, basically, if it is null, it won't execute this file. It will come out of that one. I can put else here. Else system.out.println array, null array, no data found. So that like that basically you can handle it. So you can tell that basically. So if it is null, if it is not null, then it will run this one. If it is null, that means it will go to else block, right? Null. So then it will print this one, no data found. So basically if it is true, then only it will go here. If it is false, it will come here. If it is null, this will become a true basically, right? Like that. Let me run this program. So it's see now if you look at here, the property file not found, unable to read file. So so because I renamed the file, right? Now the file no longer exists there. File not found. It went into here catch block. The try catch, basically this checker exception happened, and then it went into this and returned null. Finally called. So here also it's because whenever error happened or not happened, this finally block is getting called, finally called, and it went in, it returned null here, right? It didn't process all basically the rest of the program. It didn't process it. It didn't read it basically. It didn't process this lines of code. It went into the, it returned and it came here. So basically you called the read file, right? This is null now. So if it is not null, so and then what happened? Null array, no data found. So else block, it turned into else block. It said that null array, because if it is null, then go here. If it is not null, then execute this lines of code. So for loop, right? Execute and print this one to the console. If it is null, just print the line that not null array, right? So this is executed now. So this is how you're going to handle the exceptions. You're bringing, so build that process to gracefully brought down. Basically, you tell that user the property file not found. That's why you exited the program. This is a checker exceptions because at the compile time. For example, let me show you the runtime exception. Suppose I have an array like this, integer array, AR equal to 10, 20, 30. Okay. If I try to access system.out.println value, suppose so this is 10, 20, 0th location, this is first location, second location. So value basically, if I try to do AR0, the value is there at 0 location. It doesn't fail here because the 0 location you have 10 here. But you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Suppose if I try to access something which is at 4, which is that no data is there, that array doesn't have the value 4, value at like location 4. So in that case, AR of 4. So it will fail here because runtime exception will happen because you are trying to read the location 4 which is not there. Array has only size is 3. Array is 3, 0, array of 0, 1, 2 are there. 3, 4 are not there. 4 you're trying to read. See what happens here. If you save it and run this program, see it failed now. It is a run because the compile time didn't complain anything. You're trying to read 4, but it didn't tell anything to you. But if it is checked exception, it would have showed you error there itself, and you put a try catch block. You have to catch checked exceptions. Otherwise, your program won't compile. You cannot run the program. But runtime exceptions, you won't get any compilation errors. You run the program, but at runtime, you will know it failed. Now it is failed. What is the because what it's saying that here? It is saying that exception. It is saying array bound exception. So the array index out of bound exception is a runtime exception. It caught at runtime. You didn't catch it compile time. You cannot catch because you can catch it basically if you know, but it won't restrict you. It won't force you to catch it. Checker exceptions will force you because it will fail at compilation time. This is a runtime exception. Now what you can do is here around this one you can put a try catch block. Try catch. This is a syntax. Array bound exception. E system.out.println. You can put a nice log statement here. You can put some information, nice information. No data found in array at location 4. Okay. You can basically put a nice error message, nice message to the user. That's why basically it didn't print it. Otherwise you would have printed whatever data is there here at location 4. So here you're catching this exception. This exception, this is terminated abnormally. If you don't put this strike a clock, it's throwing the exception and it failed, right? It's abnormally terminated program. It didn't go ahead actually. So it didn't go to the files and read. It didn't read the file. The next point basically what you have, you are reading a file here using scanner, right? It didn't happen because it terminated abnormally over there. It didn't went ahead. It didn't go. It didn't go after the statement where it failed. Where it failed, it failed at this location. This statement is failed because AR of 4 not there in the array. That's why the runtime exception happened. It failed there and terminated the program there itself. It didn't read the file there. Now you have to catch the exception. You have to handle that exception, runtime exception, so that the program will go ahead and read the file and it will continue the program. It won't terminate there itself. That's what you're trying to do here. So let us see. Let me run this program and see how it runs. So it is running the program now. So look at here. So the value 10 is printed, AR0 is printed properly. AR4, no data found. Earlier it thrown exception. Now it is saying that no data found. So this catch, you can't, this one, no data found at location 4. And then it went ahead and property file also not found. So because that also you're catching this exception, right? This block of code also ran. Okay, scanner, but file is not found. And then so that's why basically it printed nicely and no error happened. It not terminated abnormally. The program ran successfully. It ran, completed the program. It didn't abnormally terminated because you're catching the runtime exception and checked exceptions properly handled the code. So if you look at here, array bound exception is a runtime exception and file not found is a checked exceptions, compile time exceptions. Suppose, for example, if you have what is it? We put the q dot properties, right? Let me rename this one to our my file dot properties. Now let me run this program, because the now file is there. You should not throw this exception. What is it? No, the property file not there. This exception should, this statement should not come. This long message should not come. Error message, because the file is if I created back the file is there. It won't go into the checked exception. It will get the data from the file and create the array, and it will print that data present in that file. See, look at here. See, it didn't print that error message saying the file not found, because now it found the file. It did basically, but in the runtime exception, I caught this runtime exception. No data found at array 4. So that is basically here. So it didn't terminate the program there itself, right? That is the advantage of using the exceptions. So this program is not terminated here. So it gracefully handled the situation. So basically, we caught this one. So data is not there. So you print it to the user as a message saying the data is not there. So you're continuing the program. You went ahead and continued the program. You ran the program with the rest of the functionality. It didn't break the program there itself. That is the advantage of the exceptions. You should catch both runtime exceptions and compile time exceptions, which are checked exceptions. There are two kinds of exceptions: checked and unchecked exceptions. Checked exceptions can be caught at the compile time. Unchecked exceptions, runtime exceptions, you have to catch them because they can happen at runtime. That's all for today. We'll continue in the next class. Thank you.